Hello everyone, this is Madhvi Sanpala from 2 by 5 Dr. B.R. Ambedkar College of Law, Andhra University, and we are here to precisely discuss about the fundamental rights of Indian Constitution. So let's start with right to equality, Article 14 to 18. Article 14. Article 14 is the equality before law and equal protection of law. It declares that the state shall not deny to any person equality before law or the equal protection of laws within the territory of India. It means that among equals, law shall be equal and shall be equally applied, and all persons in similar circumstances shall be treated alike both in privileges conferred and liabilities imposed by the laws. It is to be noted that Article 14 is applicable for both citizens and non-citizens. If we look into State of West Bengal versus Anwar Ali Sarkar case, the Supreme Court enunciated that both equality before law and equal protection of laws are one and the same. We cannot imagine that violation of one thing is not in violation of another thing. There can be discrimination both in substantive as well as the procedural law, and Article 14 applies to both. If we also look into State of Bombay versus F.N. Balsara case, it was said that equality before law does not require mathematical equality of all persons in all circumstances. Equal treatment does not mean identical treatment. And also, if we look into Randir Singh versus Union of India case, it was held that equal pay for work is a part of Article 14. Now let's discuss about Article 15. Article 15 is no discrimination on grounds of religion, race, caste, etc. Article 15 Clause 1 states that the state shall not discriminate against any citizen on grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, or any of them. If we look into D.P. Joshi versus State of Madhya Bharat, it was held that a law which discriminates on the ground of residence does not violate Article 15 Clause 1. It was held valid as the ground of exemption was residence and not place of birth. Article 15 Clause 2 says that no citizen shall on grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, or any of them be subjected to any disability, liability, restriction, or condition with regard to subclause A, access to shops, public restaurants, hotels, and places of public entertainment. Subclause B, the use of wells, tanks, bathing guards, roads, and places of public resort maintained wholly or partly out of state funds or dedicated to the use of general public. Article 15 Clause 3 Special provisions for women and children. It says that nothing in this article shall prevent the state from making any special provisions for women and children. But this clause is exception to clauses 1 and 2. Hence, it would not be violation of Article 15 if educational institutions are established by the state exclusively for women, and also the reservation of seats for women in a college does not offend against Article 15 Clause 1. If we look into Anjali Roy versus State of West Bengal case, it has been held that Article 15 Clause 3 provides for only special provisions for the benefits of women and children and does not require that absolutely identical treatment as those enjoyed by males in similar matters must be afforded to them. Article 15 Clause 4 Special provision for advancement of backward classes. It was inserted by the Constitution First Amendment Act 1951 due to decision in the case State of Madras versus Champakam Dorai In that case, the Madras government had, by a GO, reserved seats in state medical and engineering colleges for the different communities in certain proportions on the basis of religion, race, and caste. The government defended it for promoting social justice for all the sections of people as required by Article 46. The Article 15 Clause 4 says that nothing in this article shall prevent the state from making any special provision for the advancement of any socially and educationally backward classes of citizens or for the scheduled castes and the scheduled tribes. Article 15 Clause 5 is the reservation in private and unaided institutions. The Constitution 93rd Amendment Act 2005 inserted Clause 5 in Article 15. It says that nothing in this article shall prevent the state from making any special provision by law for the advancement of any socially and educationally backward classes of citizens or for the scheduled castes and the scheduled tribes regarding their admission to educational institutions, including private ones, whether aided or unaided by the state, excepting the minority institutions. If we look into Pramati Educational and Cultural Trust versus Union of India, the Supreme Court held that Clause 5 of Article 15 of the Constitution is not an exception or a provision overriding Article 15 of the Constitution, but an enabling provision to make equality of opportunity promised in the preamble of the Constitution a reality. Article 15 Clause 6. It provides that nothing in this article shall prevent state from making any special provision for the advancement of any economically weaker sections of the citizens which relate to their admissions to educational institutions, including private institutions, whether aided or unaided by the state, other than the minority educational institutions, which in the addition to the existing reservations and subject to a minimum of 10% of total seats in each category. That was the end of Prohibition of Discrimination Article 15, and let's get into Article 16, Equality of Opportunity in Public Employment. Article 16 Clause 1. It states that there shall be equality of opportunity for all citizens in matters relating to employment or appointment to any office under the state. That means all matters in relation to employment, both prior and subsequent to the employment. If we look into ABSK Sangh versus Union of India, it held that under this Article 16 Clause 1, the state may classify based upon substantial differentia groups or classes for recruitment to public services, and this process does not necessarily spell violation of Article 14 and 16. Article 16 Clause 2. No discrimination in public employment. It states that no citizen shall on grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex, descent, place of birth, residence, or any of them be ineligible for or discriminated against in respect of any employment or office under the state. If we look into State of Kerala versus N.M. Thomas case, the Supreme Court did extend the benefits of reservations while upholding the rule that gave further exemption of 2 years to SC/ST candidates in passing the tests. Further, reservation, though not anti-merit, should not apply to some services and certain posts. Article 16 Clause 3 says that nothing in this article shall prevent Parliament from making any law prescribing in regard to a class or classes of employment or appointment to an office under the government of or any local or other authority within a state or union territory. Article 16 Clause 3 says that nothing in this article shall prevent Parliament from making any law prescribing in regard to a class or classes of employment or appointment to an office under the government of or any local or other authority within a state or union territory, reserved in the next year for SCs and STs in addition to their reserved quota of the next year. The result was to carry forward the unutilized balance, that is, unfilled vacancies in the second and third years at one time. In actual effect, 68% of the vacancies were reserved for SCs and STs. The Supreme Court, by majority of 4-1, struck down the carry forward rule as unconstitutional on the ground that power vested in government under Article 16 Clause 4 could not be exercised so as to deny reasonable equality of opportunity in matters of public employments for members of classes other than backward. Article 16 Clause 4a. Article 16 Clause 4A added by 77th Amendment Act 1995 empowers state to make any provision for reservation in matters of promotions for SCs and STs which in opinion of the state are not adequately represented in the services under the state. If we look into Indira Sawhney versus Union of India, the Supreme Court held that there could be no reservation in promotions to selection and thus overruled Rangachari's case on this point. But the central government took the view that since the Indira Sawhney case related to backward classes, the reservation in promotion of SCs and STs should not be affected and should continue. The Constitution 81st Amendment Act 2000 has added a new clause 4B after clause 4A in Article 16 of the Constitution, which seeks to end the 50% limit for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes and other backward classes in backlog vacancies which could not be filled up due to the non-availability of eligible candidates of these categories. In Balaji vs. State of Mysore case, it has been observed that Article 16 Clause 4 applies only if two conditions are satisfied. A. Class of citizens is backward, that is socially and educationally, and B. The said class is not adequately represented in the services of the state, and the second test alone cannot be the sole criteria. Article 16, Clause 5 says that nothing in this article shall affect the operation of any law which provides that the incumbent of an office in connection with the affairs of any religious or denominational institution or any member of the governing body thereof shall be a person professing a particular religion or belonging to a particular denomination. What it practically means is that, say for example, an institution of religion X which has a governing body can specifically reserve the posts for members of the governing body for only members of the religion X without violating the right to equality of employment. That was the end of Equality of Opportunity in Public Employment, Article 16, and let's get into Article 17, Abolition of Untouchability. Article 17 abolishes untouchability and forbids its practice in any form. To eradicate the menace of untouchability, Article 17 enacts two declarations. Untouchability is abolished and its practice in any form is forbidden. If a person seeks to enforce any disability arising out of untouchability, he will be punished as per law. That was the brief of Abolition of Untouchability, Article 17, and let's briefly discuss about Article 18, Abolition of Titles. The word title means something that hangs to one's name as an appendage. Article 18 deals with the abolition of titles. Article 18 Clause 1 says that no title not being a military or academic distinction shall be conferred by the state. Article 18 Clause 2 prohibits a citizen of India from accepting any title from any foreign state. Article 18 Clause 3. It provides that a foreigner holding any office of profit or trust under the state cannot accept any title from any foreign state without consent of the President. This is to ensure loyalty to the government he serves for the time being and to shut all foreign influence in government affairs or administration. Article 18 Clause 4 provides that no person holding any office of profit or trust under the state shall accept without the consent of the President any present, emolument or office of any kind from or under foreign state. The conferment of titles of Bharat Ratna, Padma Vibhushan, Padma Shri, etc. are not prohibited under Article 18 as they merely denote state recognition of good work by citizens of academic distinctions. These national awards are given on the Republic Day in recognition of exceptional and distinguished services of the high integrity in any field. That was the end of Article 14 to 18, Equality before law. And let's get into Article 19 to 22, Freedom of Speech and Expression. Article 19, Freedom and Restrictions. Article 19 of the Indian Constitution provides 6 freedoms. Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause A is the freedom of speech and expression. all citizens shall have the right to freedom of speech and expression. Freedom of speech and expression guaranteed under Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause A includes 1. Freedom of press. It is the liberty of the press consists in printing without any license subject to the consequences of law. 2. Freedom of silence, which is right not to speak. And 3. Public demonstration. If we look into Romesh Thapar vs. State of Madras case, a law banning entry and circulation of journal in a state was held to be invalid. The petitioner, who was a printer, publisher and editor of a weekly journal in English called Crossword, printed and published in Bombay. The government of Madras, in exercise of their powers under Section 9, subsection 1A of the Maintenance of Public Order Act 1949, issued an order prohibiting the entry or the circulation of the journal in that state. The court held there can be no doubt that freedom of speech and expression includes freedom of propagation of ideas, and that freedom is ensured by the freedom of circulation. Liberty of circulation is an essential to that freedom as the liberty of publication. Restrictions on freedom of speech and expression can only be imposed on grounds mentioned in Article 19, Clause 2. A law which authorizes imposed of restrictions on grounds of public safety or the maintenance of public order falls outside the scope of authorized restrictions under Clause 2 and is void and unconstitutional. Hence, it was rightly observed that freedom of speech and press lay the foundation of all democratic organization, for without free political discussion, no public education so essential for the proper functioning of the process of popular government is possible. Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause B is freedom of assembly. Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause B guarantees to all the citizens of India the right to assemble peaceably and without arms. The right is, however, subjected to restrictions. 1. The assembly must be peaceful. 2. It must be unarmed. Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause C, freedom to form association. It guarantees to all the citizens the right to form associations or unions or cooperative societies. It includes the right to form companies, societies, partnership, trade union and political parties. In Suryapal Singh vs. State of UP, it has been held that the right to form association or union implies right to form or not to form, to join or not to join an association or union. Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause D is the freedom of movement. Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause D guarantees to all the citizens of India the right to move freely throughout the territory of India. And the reasonable restrictions on freedom of movement is imposable in the interest of general public and for the protection of the interest of scheduled tribes. Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause G is freedom of profession, occupation, trade or business. As Clause F was omitted by the Constitution 44th Amendment Act 1978, it was named G after Subclause E. Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause G guarantees the citizen of India the right to practice any profession or to carry on any occupation, trade or business. And the reasonable restrictions on freedom of movement is imposable in the interest of general public, prescribing professional or technical qualifications necessary. Article 19, Clause 2, Grounds of Restrictions. Clause 2 of Article 19 contains the grounds on which restrictions on the freedom of speech and expression can be imposed. A. Sovereignty and integrity of India. B. Security of the state. C. Friendly relations with foreign states. D. Public order. E. Decency or morality. F. Contempt of court. G. Defamation. And H. Incitement of an offence. Now let's discuss Article 20, Protection against Conviction of Offences. Article 20 of Indian Constitution provides for protection in respect of conviction of offences. Article 20, Clause 1 is the protection against ex post facto law. It means a law which imposes penalties or convictions on the acts already done and increases the penalty for such acts. It meant that a law which imposes a punishment for an act which was not punishable at the time of commission of the offence or imposes additional punishment to what was prescribed at the time of commission of the offence. For example, the Dowry Prohibition Act 1961 came into force from 20 May 1961. A person guilty of accepting dowry is punishable under the Act after 20 May 1961 and not before it. Article 20, Clause 2 is the protection against double jeopardy. Article 20, Clause 2 of our Constitution says that no person shall be prosecuted and punished for the same offence more than once. The protection against double punishment is given only when the accused has not only been prosecuted but also punished. The essentials for the application of jeopardy rule are: the person must be accused of an offence, the proceedings of the prosecution must have taken place before a court or judicial tribunal, the person must have been prosecuted and punished in the previous proceeding, and the offence must be the same for which he was prosecuted and punished in the previous proceedings. Article 20, Clause 3, Protection against self-incrimination. Article 20, Clause 3 provides that no person accused of any offence shall be compelled to be a witness against himself. It is based on a law magazine, Nemo Tenetur Prodire Accusare Seipsa, which means that no man is bound to accuse himself. These statements are of two kinds, self-serving and self-harming statements, where self-serving statements are not acceptable in evidence. Now let's discuss about Article 21, Protection of Life and Personal Liberty. Article 21 of the Constitution says that no person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty except according to procedure established by law. If we look into A.K. Gopalan vs. State of Madras case, Menaka Gandhi was issued a passport on 10 June 1976 under the Passport Act 1967. The Regional Passport Officer, New Delhi, issued a letter dated 2nd July 1977 addressed to Menaka Gandhi, in which she was asked to surrender her passport under Section 10, Clause 3, Subclause C of the Act in public interest within 7 days from the date of receipt of the letter. Menaka Gandhi immediately wrote a letter to the regional officer seeking, in written, a copy of the statement of reasons for such order. However, the Government of India, Ministry of External Affairs, refused to produce any such reason in the interest of general public. Later, a writ petition was filed by Menaka Gandhi under Article 32 of the Constitution in the Supreme Court, challenging the order of the Government of India as violating her fundamental rights guaranteed under Article 21 of the Constitution. On significant interpretation in this case is the discovery of interconnections between the three articles, Article 19, 14 and 21. This is a law which prescribes a procedure for depriving a person of personal liberty has to fulfill the requirements of Article 14 and 19 also. It was finally held by the court that the right to travel and go outside the country is included in the right to personal liberty guaranteed under Article 21. The court ruled that the mere existence of an enabling law was not enough to restrain personal liberty. Prior to Menaka Gandhi's case decision, the state could interfere with the liberty of citizens if it could support its action by valid law. But after Menaka Gandhi's case decision, Article 21 now protects the right to life and personal liberty of citizen not only from the executive action but also from the legislative action. There are many rights under right to life and liberty. Some of them will be discussed here. Right to privacy. It is the right to be let alone, the right of person to be free from unwanted publicity. If we look into People's Union of Civil Liberties (PUCL) versus Union of India, The Supreme Court of India held that Indian voters have a right under Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause A of the Indian Constitution to obtain information about political candidates. The PUCL challenged the validity of a 1951 law which stated that political candidates were not bound to disclose any information not required under the law. The court reasoned that the availability of basic information about the candidates enables voters to make an informed decision and also paves the way for public debates on the merits and demerits of the candidates. Right to livelihood. Article 21 reads as, "No person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty except according to a procedure established by law." If we look into Olga Tellis vs. Bombay Municipal Corporation case, popularly known as the Pavement Dwellers case, the petitioners had challenged the validity of sections 313, 313A, 314 and 497 of the Bombay Municipal Corporation Act 1888, which empowered the municipal authorities to remove their huts from pavement and public places on the ground that their removal amounted to depriving them of their right to livelihood, and hence it was violative of Article 21. Right to die. The Supreme Court, in its landmark judgment in P. Ratnam and Nagabhushan Patnaik vs. Union of India, held that a person has a right to die and declared Section 309 IPC, punishment for attempt to suicide, unconstitutional. The right to live in Article 21 includes the right not to live, that is, right to die. Right to get pollution-free water and air. In India, pollution-free environment is declared by the Apex Court as a fundamental right falling under Article 21 of the Constitution. Now let's discuss about Article 21A, Right to Education. The state shall provide free and compulsory education to all children of the age 6 to 14 years in such manner as the state may by law determine. It was added by the Constitution 86th Amendment Act 2002. If we look into Mohini Jain vs. State of Karnataka case, the petitioner Mohini Jain was denied admission because of high capitation fee of Rs 4.5 lakhs per annum in private medical college in Karnataka. The court held the right to education at all levels a fundamental right under Article 21 of the Constitution, and charging capitation fee for admission illegal and amounted to denial of citizens' right to education. However, the court did not say up to what age has the right to education guaranteed by Constitution, but later specified it under Article 21A. Now let's briefly discuss about Article 22, Protection against Arrest and Detention. Article 22 of the Indian Constitution deals with safeguards if the personal liberty is curtailed by the arbitrary arrest and detention. Article 22 Clause 1 says that no person who is arrested shall be detained in custody without being informed as soon as may be of the grounds for such arrest, nor shall he be denied the right to consult and to be defended by a legal practitioner of his choice. Article 22 Clause 2 says that every person who is arrested and detained in custody shall be produced before the nearest magistrate within a period of 24 hours of such arrest, excluding the time necessary for the journey from the place of arrest to the court of the magistrate, and no such person shall be detained in custody beyond the said period without the authority of magistrate. Article 22 Clause 3 says that nothing in clauses 1 and 2 shall apply, subclause A, to any person who for the time being is an enemy alien, subclause B, to any person who is arrested or detained under any law providing for preventive detention. Article 22 Clause 4 says that no law providing for preventive detention shall authorize the detention of a person for a longer period than 3 months unless an advisory board consisting of persons who are or have been or are qualified to be appointed as judges of a high court has reported before the expiration of the said period of 3 months that there is in its opinion sufficient cause for such detention. Article 22, Clause 5 says that when any person is detained in pursuance of an order made under any law providing for preventive detention, the authority making the order shall, as soon as may be, communicate to such person the grounds on which the order has been made and shall afford him the earliest opportunity of making a representation against the order. Well, that was the end of Article 22, Protection Against Arrest and Detention, and the rest of the articles will be covered in part 2 of this video. Stay tuned, people.